Hello everyone. So it's been a long day cleaning out my old house and it's now past midnight, but I absolutely wanted to avoid not making this video because being Belgian, Spa-Francorchamps is kind of my home track. Spa-Francorchamps is really fun to drive on, even if you drive something a lot slower than a Formula One car. And although Nürburgring Nordschleife is still the most fun track to drive on, Spa-Francorchamps is much more fun once you become a better driver. Because if you want to practice your driving technique, such as say trail braking, then Spa-Francorchamps is a much safer place to do it in. You wouldn't want to try trail braking for the first time on the Nürburgring because if you make a mistake then you might crash, but at Spa there are many runoff areas, being a Formula 1 grade track. So yeah, we just watched a absolute classic Formula 1 moment where Mika Häkkinen passed Michael Schumacher for the lead, and they both went around Ricardo Zonta. So Spa-Francorchamps is very much a power track. If you have a very powerful engine, makes things a lot easier. So what, although you might not see it, although it's not that clear, the Camel Straight is actually significantly uphill. So having a powerful engine really helps reduce the lap time. If we discuss the setup requirements, and so in terms of downforce level, so the only track with a lower downforce level is Monza, and it's a real trade-off in downforce between the first and last sectors. So the first and third sector. So from La Source all the way to Les Combes, and then out of Stavelot to the chicane. These parts you would want to have as low wing as possible, but the thing is, everything in red. The second sector you would want a lot more downforce. So it's a bit of a trade-off, but in the end, to avoid being overtaken and to ease overtaking, most people would end up on the lower side of the downforce trade-off, just so that they are really fast down the straights, even if that doesn't end up with the fastest lap time. Something I would recommend to the sim racers out there would be to try and drive with a really low downforce. So say your Monza setup, just try that level of downforce around Spa, because then you really practice trying to get the maximum out of your car despite having low downforce through the second sector. So with the low downforce setup, really focus on the second sector, and if you can improve your driving using the very low downforce setup, then once you put on a bit more downforce, it will be very helpful. You'll become a better driver and drive faster with more downforce as well. So Spa-Francorchamps is famous for having very unpredictable weather, and when it rains, it's fun, but it really wreaks havoc, as you see in this classic moment in one of what Murray Walker described as the worst start to a Formula One race he's ever seen. And I don't believe this start has ever been beaten in terms of how bad it was. Oh, okay, I have to hurry because 10 minutes battery remaining. Okay, let's try to hurry up there. What we said about downforce is also a trade-off between wet and dry setups, because if you know it's going to rain, then you probably going to err on the side of a little bit more downforce, because if it rains, you want the downforce to help push the wet tires through the water onto the tarmac. So in terms of roll stiffness, for sure you don't want it as stiff as, say, Silverstone, because we just saw the Lando Norris locking up. There are a few slow corners, and the slow corners are actually quite important. For example, La Source, it exits onto what is the longest full throttle section in Formula One, and you definitely do not want to have lock up into La Source, which will then mess up your exit for sure. So you cannot have, and if you have very high roll stiffness, then you increase your likelihood of locking up into La Source and into the chicane, and both of those especially La Source is very important. Right. So we saw that. Was it? No. Right. The Ferrari really tried to make a gamble because they're trying to make up for the lack of engine power, so they mounted a really slim rear wing. But this is likely to lead to some issues. So first of all, there's the high-speed handling balance, which could result in a lot of high-speed oversteer, which is difficult for the drivers to handle. So they did something similar in Silverstone, where they gambled on going with quite low rear downforce to increase the top speeds, because Charles Leclerc had a lot of time to get used to it. He managed to do a good job in the race with that setup, but then because Vettel didn't get a lot of practice laps due to various mechanical issues, he struggled a lot more. So in Belgium, it seems like they tried it. They tried something even more extreme. It didn't really work. Probably due to balance issues. They will also be very slow in the second sector, and also when you use so little downforce, then you could also have issues with tire warm-up, because you don't put that much load on the tire, which so the tire doesn't deform as much, and the deformation is what helps the tire heat up. So if the tire was too cold, then you don't reach the peak grip. It's a vicious cycle. And finally, something which was interesting was where I was reading that the Red Bull was 0.4 of a second faster than the Mercedes just through the chicane. It could be something as simple as just Mercedes having roll stiffness and brake balance slightly off, because if those are slightly off and the drivers are very close to having lockups, then it reduces their confidence, so then they might be taking it slightly easier into the corner. Going through the chicane, it could also be that their diff setting, the differential setting, is not as well set up as the Red Bull. In the chicane, it's quite important to the drivers will be coming off the throttle and then back on the throttle, so the power off and the power on diff settings are important to help the driver rotate the car through through the chicane, and so if that isn't well set up, then you also lose time. So whatever happens, I for sure will enjoy the Belgian Grand Prix. Hope you do too. Until next time.